In previous sections, I have already mentioned that when working in social networks and online services, we need to choose reliable passwords. But what exactly is a reliable password? Let's talk about that now. But first, let's try to answer a simple question. What was the most popular Cyrillic password in 2023? If you answered Yatsakan, then yes, that is indeed the correct answer, because on the English layout it means QWERTY. This is one of the most popular combinations that users choose when they create a password. If we remove the word Cyrillic and look at all the most popular passwords in the top 10, the combination 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 will be in first place for many, many years, because it is also an easily memorable sequence of numbers, which can be typed equally effectively on a laptop keyboard, on a smartphone, and even on the PIN pad of the same ATM or other internet terminals. What else is important for us to know about how we choose passwords and why it matters? The fact is that the human brain often works inherently according to certain patterns. When choosing our personal passwords for various personal services, such as for our smartphones, email, social networks, gaming services, online banking, and so on, we generally apply the same passwords in our work within corporate environments, in departmental networks, and so forth. This means that if attackers have managed to gain access to our passwords from various personal services, they are much more likely to gain access to our corporate resources as well, with all the resulting consequences. So how should one choose reliable passwords, and why do most users settle on easily guessable combinations like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or QWERTY or Yatsakan? In fact, the answer is very simple. We, as security professionals, unfortunately complicate life for all users. We require them to remember very long, random sequences of characters consisting of uppercase and lowercase letters, special symbols, and numbers. And, of course, the human brain is not capable of remembering such sequences. Moreover, according to research, the human brain is generally incapable of remembering a sequence of 7 plus or minus 2 random elements. Therefore, when cybersecurity specialists say that it is necessary to remember very long passwords, 10, 12, or 16 characters, how should one choose a password that will be considered reliable? In my opinion, one can follow a very simple, yet sufficiently reliable recommendation here. These are 3 to 4 words combined into a common sequence. Yes, you can add special characters, and yes, you can add some numbers. This is not so critical. It may be necessary to add them according to the requirements of a specific service, as they monitor whether your password contains special characters, numbers, and so on. In general, it is sufficient if you can create your password from 3 to 4 random words that are personally and uniquely significant to you and easily memorable for you. So don't forget 3 or 4 words that are definitely memorable for you. And indeed, in this case, guessing such a password or cracking it will be difficult. You may ask a reasonable question. Let's use graphical passwords instead of sequences of letters, numbers, special characters, etc. Note that attackers also track these types of password entry methods. There are already special tables on the internet, just as there are for dictionary passwords, as well as for graphical passwords. Strangely enough, people also tend to choose the same sequences, and what you see on the screen now are quite popular, probably the most popular options for graphical passwords that are present on certain types of smartphones, tablets, and other mobile devices. As an option, one can certainly consider such an advanced method of choosing a password as using emojis as symbols. In this case, our password can be much shorter than one made up of regular letters and numbers, precisely because the alphabet consisting of emojis today includes more than 3,000 different options, icons, symbols, and so on. This means that cracking such a password will take attackers significantly much longer and require considerably more time than if they were trying to guess graphical passwords or more familiar text passwords. But I want to draw your attention once again to the fact that, when choosing passwords, you should answer a number of quite important questions that are not always obvious at first glance. And now we will move on to the tips for choosing passwords and what to pay attention to when selecting your passwords. First of all, remember that when choosing passwords, you should be able to type them equally comfortably from your laptop's keyboard and from your smartphone, and possibly from any other device that exists now or will appear in the near future. Perhaps this is exactly why the sequence 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 is so popular among us, as it can be easily used on the PIN pad of the same ATM, on a smartphone and, of course, on a laptop. Therefore, graphic passwords, emoji passwords, etc. are options that are applicable only to those services that you usually use from a laptop or, in some cases, from a smartphone, where it is indeed possible to enter emojis. Well, the most important thing is that remembering this kind of emoji is quite easy, but explaining it to anyone is rather difficult, and coming up with such passwords is indeed challenging. As I mentioned, typing them on different devices will also be problematic. A very important recommendation is to not hold on to passwords. Change them regularly, at least for critical services. When I say regularly, I don't mean that you have to change your passwords every 30 days, or every 90 days, or even every 108 days. Change your password at least once a year, provided that you are using multi-factor authentication, which I have already discussed in the previous section. In this case, the combination of a password and various multi-factor authentication mechanisms will indeed allow you to avoid the hassle of changing your password every month and the problem of remembering all those password combinations that you will come up with every 30 days. Therefore, if you have enabled multi-factor authentication, which I strongly recommend doing wherever possible, you may not need to change your password very often, but it is still necessary to change it. Next question. What should the length of a password be today? This value changes annually as technology develops. Every year, this number increases by 1 to 2 values. If last year, in 2023, the length of a more or less reliable password that cannot be cracked by modern computing technology was 14 characters, then in 2024, experts believe that the length of such a password should be at least 16 characters. Next year, this number may increase further, and this is also a certain complexity. If you follow the classic, but now outdated recommendation to choose random sequences of characters in both upper and lower case, using numbers, special characters, and so on. However, if you choose a password made up of 3 to 4 words, then the length of the password does not matter at all, whether it is 16 characters, 18, 20, or even 25. 4 words put together will overshadow this number for many years to come. Although, of course, as technology advances and quantum computers emerge, the length of passwords will indeed become a stumbling block, and we will have to transition to something entirely different, passwordless authentication technologies, which are already appearing among various security companies, IT firms, and other big tech organizations. Furthermore, an important point. Do not rely on your brain. No matter how much you think you have a good memory, the human brain tends to forget things that you do not use for a long time. You certainly do not use all your passwords with the same frequency. For some rare services, you might not use a password for weeks or perhaps even months. Therefore, a good, perhaps even excellent, recommendation would be to use password managers. But when choosing a password manager, spend 5 to 10 minutes to search online for information about whether the password manager you have chosen has had any security issues. The fact is that, unfortunately, these password managers are also created by people. There are cases when password managers themselves contain vulnerabilities. For example, there have already been cases where a password manager stored passwords in an unprotected form on the computer's hard drive, or when a password manager used cloud storage to synchronize passwords between different devices. and attackers specifically targeted the cloud storage, extracting all passwords of all users of that service. Therefore, pay attention to whether the company has faced security issues before and how often it has encountered such problems. Choose wisely. Password managers, and then you will be able to store an almost unlimited number of different passwords in these programs. Moreover, they also synchronize across different devices, so you won't have to do it on each of your devices, whether it's a smartphone, tablet, laptop, home computer, etc. Use your own separate password manager, several copies, and a unified password database, no matter how many you have. Pay attention. This is a quite useful tool when used correctly to ensure that your passwords are reliable. But also remember that many password managers can suggest reliable passwords for you and store them in their database. In the event that you, for some reason, do not trust your own brain and how you can come up with passwords, or think that you cannot create a reliable password that would not be guessed by attackers. What's next? Try not to save passwords in browsers. Today, almost all browsers offer you this kind of option, but it's better to use password managers, which are often integrated with popular browsers. This will allow you, on one hand, to work effectively with passwords across various services, and on the other hand, not to share your passwords with browsers, including foreign browsers. Also, secret and code words. We have become so accustomed to them, especially those who actively use online banking, that we no longer even notice that it has turned into an anachronism. Practically all secret code words used in internet banking, in various services for password recovery, and for regaining access to accounts are undoubtedly known to attackers, almost certainly. But imagine if you were perhaps asked to choose your mother's maiden name as a secret or code word. In this case, your mother is among your friends on social media, and it is obvious that she has indicated her maiden name there, either directly or in brackets next to her current surname. It is clear that this word cannot be considered secret. Both the code and the attackers can easily guess it, just like the name of your pet, the make of your first car, the city where you were born, the number of the school you attended, and many other supposedly secret words that are easily determined because we provide them in our social media profile. Therefore, if you choose secret code words, make sure to choose them consciously. If there is an opportunity to come up with a password on your own, it is better to do so rather than choosing from a ready-made set of easily guessable secret words. Well, why not choose the name of the boy who turned you down on the first date? This is something that is remembered for a lifetime, but at the same time, it is something that you are unlikely to ever publicize. The same applies to the name of the girl who rejected you on the first date. It is an easily memorable story that appears nowhere else but in your memory. This is a very good secret word that you can use if a service requires you to use such secret or code words. No mother's maiden names. Remember that. It's important. Well, in the case that you are truly concerned about your passwords and are ready to switch to more reliable mechanisms, it might be worth considering hardware tokens, which allow you to replace passwords or use these tokens as a password storage solution that is not transferable from you. You do not store them in the cloud, you do not store them on the computer's hard drive, you do not store them on your smartphone, you store them on a separate token. And for an attacker to gain access to them, they simply need to steal this token, which is much more difficult than hacking a computer. How to check if your passwords have been leaked and are not accessible to attackers. Today, there are quite a number of services available for this purpose. Both of these browsers, such as Google Chrome and Mozilla Firefox, provide built-in free services to check whether your passwords have been compromised in any leaks. Of course, they do not check the passwords themselves, but your email addresses. These are clearly fraudulent resources, so when someone offers to check online whether a credit card number has been stolen, it is definitely a scam. In the next section, we will start talking about how to protect yourself while surfing the internet.